Vietnam gained a formal independence from its French colonial domination in the year 1945. But it was not until 1974, almost 30 years later, that the Republic of Vietnam was actually formed. The history of Vietnam is characterized by the very essence of colonialism, that is, exploitation and torture. And that resulted in nationalism. Let's first understand the primary concept of nationalism, without which transformation of Vietnam into the Republic of Vietnam would not have been possible. Colonialism and Indian struggle of independence against it goes a long way. And another nation with a similar historiography, not far from our geographical location, is Vietnam, or as formerly known as Indo-China. Even though Vietnam gained independence in 1945 before India, it was not until 1974, almost 3 decades later, that the Republic of Vietnam truly became independent. And today, we're going to talk about the nationalist movement in Indo-China. Now, there is a remarkable difference in the way colonial empires functioned and anti-imperial movement developed. And if we are to compare the historical experience of Indo-China in relation to that of India on their tryst with nationalism, then we see both differences and similarities. Though the development of nationalism in Indo-China was not very different from ours, but pre-colonized Vietnam was actually far from being a country or a nation. It was actually a bunch of distinctive communities who considered themselves to be completely different entities. It was only once the blows of colonization struck all these indigenous communities that came together as a nation to fight against the external powers, which is the French colonial domination. So moving on, let's go back to where it all began and set a little historical context to Vietnam, shall we? Okay. The region in question was then referred to as Indo-China, which comprises of the present-day countries of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. Their earlier history shows various distinct communities living in the area under the wider umbrella of China. As independent country was soon established in the present-day northern and central Vietnam. The rulers of this independent country, however, still chose to operate within the shadow of the Chinese culture and follow the same Chinese systems too. Amidst all this pre-existing Chinese rule, Vietnam constantly tried to emerge as independent as well as away from it. And amongst other elaborately distinctive characteristics of its own, Vietnam was linked to the Maritime Silk route that brought in goods, people and ideas via the sea route. And other networks of trade connected Vietnam to the hinterlands, that is, the remote areas that were away from the shore. And non-Vietnamese people like the Khmer Cambodians lived in such remote places. So now that we know a little about the foundation of Vietnam, let's try to understand the process of gradual establishment of the colonial rule there. Vietnam was colonized by the French. The French control brought about a lot of conflicts in the Vietnamese machinery, especially in the military and economic domination. The roots of their far-reaching force not only limited themselves to just the structural institutions, but also threatened to reshape the entire Vietnamese culture. And it was through these far-reaching, uncontrollable events that nationalism in Vietnam emerged by the coming together of different sections of the society to collectively fight against the French and whatever reforms that they brought in. Let's travel back to from where it all started. The French troops landed in Vietnam in 1858, and by the mid-1880s, they had established a firm grip over the northern region of Vietnam. Now, after the Franco-Chinese War, the French assumed control over Tonkin and Annam. And in 1887, the French-controlled Indo-China was formed.
Tutormate. For more amazing video lectures, download the free app on Apple App Store or Google Play Store